Are you there, YouTube? It's me, John Stark, from MacTheMovieGuy.com. If you're there, could you click subscribe? That would be great. I need to review this film now. Thanks. In case you didn't understand, this is going to be a review of Are You There, God? It's me, Margaret. This is directed by Kelly Freeman Craig. I rented it, VOD, because it's Lionsgate, and Lionsgate typically sends their movies to Stars, which does not have audio description. It's really frustrating that if I really want to see a film from Lionsgate, if I don't, I'm not going to pay for it. I'll watch it on Stars. But if I'm at all remotely interested in it, it was the same problem I had with John Wick Chapter 4. I was like, I can't. I can't do this. So, yes, I rented it off of iTunes. So I could have audio description because Stars sucks. And presumably that's where it's going. Technically, I should say it hasn't landed anywhere. And it could have some specific deal where it goes somewhere else, and I might have shot myself in the foot. However, Transformers Rise of the Beasts is currently on streaming, and that opened in June, and this opened in April. So I don't know what's happening with this, and I wanted to watch it and get that review out there. Yes, this is fantastic and has audio description, and I loved it. And I'm a guy. I'm a big, hairy guy. I've got a beard. I've got gray in my beard. I've got a lip ring. I am not the target demo for this. I'm obsessed with this film. I thought it was fantastic. I'm literally sitting here going, is this my favorite film of the year? It's definitely in my top 10 right now. I think it's the kind of film that could stay in my top 10 as the films continue to release throughout the year. This might be something I really want to cling on to. The whole experience was so special, and it was so unexpected. I did not expect, I just thought the critics were like, oh, God, they're doing this again. Because I mentioned the director earlier, Kelly Freeman Craig, with her. She's only got one film. This is her second film. Her previous film was Edge of 17, which is okay. I felt like that was a little overpraised at the time. Everybody was like, oh my God, this film speaks to me. And I was like, it doesn't speak to me. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. I like the cast. I mean, they're good people, but it's not that I hated the film, but I didn't feel like it didn't take me to another level. Whereas I felt like there were critics who were like, "Oh, Haley Steinfeld for the Oscar, please. Can we please get her an Oscar nomination here?" And I've heard kind of the same thing with Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and I was like, it's the same director of Edge of 17. There's no way. I'm just going to go into this, and I'm going to have the same reaction, where I'm going to be like, this is way overblown. It's actually not. This is written really well. It's both a time capsule, but it also still works surprisingly well today. The acting is so on point. Abby Ryder-Fortson is just a massive discovery. And I feel like I say this all the time about child actors when they're great in things, and I feel like I call them out. And like Woody Norman, when I did Come On, Come On, he actually ended up being in my top 10 performances, supporting actor performances that year. And he was a child actor, but I recognized his performance right away. And then all I'm seeing now is this new film, Cobweb, and all these people are doing this review, and they're like, yeah, the adults are good, but man, this kid is really good. They're acting like he came out of nowhere. Like, no, was I the only person that saw Come On, Come On? Like, there are really good kids, and we used to be able to spot them, and we would talk about them and be like, oh my God, the next Dakota Fanning, you know? I don't know why we don't pay attention to them anymore. Abby Ryder-Fortson is definitely one to watch, and will definitely anchor lots of films moving on down the line. Definitely will be somebody who we will continue to see greatness from I don't know if it'll all be in film or if it'll be in TV, but she's Margaret. The film doesn't work without her. It just doesn't. Even if the adults are all fantastic in their roles, which they are, Rachel McAdams, Kathy Bates, Benny Safdie, all terrific performances. I loved all of them, but it doesn't work without her. So kudos to casting, and also kudos to the casting director for finding a cast, an ensemble of child actors who all didn't feel pretentious. They all just kind of felt like exactly who they were supposed to be at that moment in time. They all felt like the age they were playing. Whether they are the age they're playing is a debatable thing. I don't know. But they all felt like they were. And that's important because sometimes kids feel smarter than they are, smarter than they need to be, wiser than they are, wiser than they need, It's just sometimes it can come across a little bit too much, and you have to have, but you also can't have that little kid that can't act. That's the other way too. The one that you're pretty certain there's like a giant cue card next to the camera with that kid's lines. I hate those. Those kids suck too. Those are not good. You can tell because they sound like they're reading all of their lines. I love you, Dad. I just wanted you to know that. You're like, okay, this kid's reading. There's a card behind somewhere that they're reading from. No, we do not appreciate a great performance like this enough. And it's just, I didn't read the book. I'm just gonna say that. I'm not coming from a place where I'm like, this is my beloved childhood book. This book was released in the 70s. I was not born. I could not read this book when it came out. And there were other books that I read as a kid. I was a little bit more of a Beverly Cleary kid, to be honest, than a Judy Blume kid. Beverly Cleary's books ended up more in my library as a kid than Judy's. And they're all about growing up, and they're all about kid problems. And Margaret just goes through a lot. I mean, she's experiencing a lot. She's at this point in her life where she has just moved to this new house in this new town, and immediately this girl comes over and tries to befriend her. And so she's immediately got friends, and they all have their own thoughts, and it's like she's never had friends before who have had these thoughts about boys and wanting boobs and looking at drawings of penises and thinking about their periods. And this is a very forward-thinking film. This is very much a PG-13 film. So, but it's also incredibly honest. I can't believe that girls aren't thinking about this at that age. I was a boy. I was thinking about all that at my age too. It's an incredibly honest film, and it's amazing that it captures that, and it captures that spirit, and that these kids relay it in such an honest manner to the audience. There's a whole other subplot here when Margaret is asked to sort of on the first day of class, her 6th grade teacher has her list like her favorite thing, her least favorite thing, and something else. I don't know, it's not important. Anyway, her least favorite thing was like religion, and the thing that she hated was religion, and her teacher was really interested in that, and she has to do some sort of like all year long project. So he encouraged her to do it on religion because her very specific viewpoint is that her mom is Christian and her dad is Jewish, and her parents, who had sort of an interesting start to their lives because of their differences in religion, essentially have chosen to raise Margaret without religion, to let her be able to choose religion on her own when she's an adult, instead of trying to indoctrinate her one way or the other, or even trying to split it, trying to raise her as both. they just decided to become neutral so that way Margaret can find her own religion when she gets older, which I think is, it's an incredibly interesting premise when you come from that kind of a background, when you are split like that down the middle, that two people are willing to make that, because usually religion is something that people hold really dearly or not at all. And the fact that two people seem to both still be individually religious, and it's not that I don't think either one of them dropped their religions, either the parents, Rachel or Benny's characters, dropped their religions, but they're willing to just play it neutral for their daughter's sake, because they had such a horrific beginning to their whole marriage. There's a subplot with Rachel McAdams where she runs through the whole movie with this. Eventually, Margaret has to ask her. It comes up about why she's never met her other grandparents, and we find out it's because they disowned her because she married a Jew, and so it's a really big thing for their family. But meanwhile, Margaret is supposed to be in this exploration of religion, and she's trying to explore all these different angles, and she's running, she's checking things out. Like, she's trying to see, so she goes with her grandmother to temple. There's a point where she runs into a confessional, and you see religion is sort of all around her, and there are points of the film, there's a point in the film where she doesn't feel it at all, because she keeps doing this, "Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret." Like, throughout the whole film, she keeps trying to talk to God, and she keeps asking him for guidance or certain things, that as kids we would ask for, right? Like silly things. She really wants her boobs to come in so that she can fill out a bra. Even though she hates wearing a bra, she puts on a bra for the first time, and her mom's like, "How do you feel?" And she's like, "I want to take it off immediately." And she's like, welcome to womanhood. It's yeah, but she still, for some reason, I don't know, societal pressure or seeing other images of other people, wants to look like, an adult, like a woman. And I just, at such a young age, and she's in 6th grade, so and all these girls are competing to have their periods first, and even kind of lying about it. She does have this somewhat mean girl of a neighbor. It's not too mean girlish. I thought it was hilarious, by the way, the comparison, because we have this quasi mean girl next door, and I'm like, Regina George is raising this child, by the way. Regina George is raising Margaret, and next door there's a mean girl. I just really wanted the Regina George / mean girl moment where she goes over and talks to the other girl. I never got it, but I can't help but think, I was like, man, Regina George has got children now. I'm so fucking old. She's got like an 11-year-old. Yes, Rachel McAdams will always be Regina George to me. And it played such a huge factor into this film, because I kept seeing her as Regina George. I couldn't get past it. I was like, Regina's got a kid. It just makes me feel old. Anyway. Yes. So, this is a fantastic film. Kathy Bates is great. She's terrific in this. She's not used as much. It's very much a supporting performance. The odd thing is Rachel is almost a co-lead. She's used almost enough as Margaret where you could debate. Like, you could coin flip that, and you could put her in lead if you wanted. But Kathy is definitely supporting. Most of her calls are not from inside the house. They're from somewhere else, and she talks to Margaret a lot over the phone, and we cut to her. But Margaret also does go to visit her, and at least she had one supportive grandparent. You know what I'm saying? She had one parent that, at least this family had one parent that did not shun them and turn them away. But it's a beautiful film. I could go on for, I don't know, another 30 minutes and just talk about how much I love this film. but just discover it for yourself. I think I've given you enough, haven't I? I feel like at this point, I'm just rambling about all of the various things that I love about this film. There's nothing I didn't like. There's it. I even realized I'm sitting here thinking, there's so much about this film that feels like today. You know, like it could still happen today, relatively close to today. This doesn't necessarily even feel like the themes and thoughts and ideas that these kids are having are so 1970s. This just feels like if they lived in a cult commune that had all agreed, where everybody agreed not to give their kids cell phones or internet access, I think these kids would still have these conversations and these thoughts and these meetings, and they'd be looking at magazines and stuff like that. I think everything would still be happening. The only difference is cell phones and internet, you know, which would create a different experience for how the kids interact. But I think there's still a lot that will resonate here with the youth of today. I'm really disappointed at the box office performance for this film because it deserves so much better than that. I hope this has one of those lives beyond where people continue to talk about it and more people continue to discover it, and it just kind of keeps flowing because it absolutely deserves it. If this film got an Oscar nomination, I would be over the moon. I don't even care for what. I think it deserves. I think we should just cut out a spot in adapted screenplay right now and just slide it in there and just agree that the 5th spot goes to this film. It doesn't need to win. I'm not saying let's give it the win, but I would love if this film got acknowledged somewhere at the Oscars for being one of the best of the year, even with one nomination. So, somewhere, anywhere. The excitement of the actors' strike possibly throwing Oscar season off, and this maybe increasing the chances of getting nomination if other films start dropping out, excites me, because this film, I think if it had opened at a different time of the year, would be more in the conversation. It's that terrific. So please check it out. The audio description was delightful. It does not play to little kids, but it also doesn't play so adult and over their heads. It's right in the middle. It's a very nice voice that just sort of runs through the film. I was quite pleased with it. And it was a new narrator to me, so I can't remember the name right now, but it was very well done. And it's very frank in all of its descriptions. I think my favorite part of the film was when it pointed out to me what it was that Margaret was looking at, which I would have totally missed. But it goes to sort of Margaret's growth at that age. There's a point in the film where she notices a boy's armpit hair. And it's such a visual thing that we would not get otherwise. It would never be in there. But the intention of that scene and the intention from director Craig is that, there's always that idea that there's the male gaze and what the males are looking at. And it's kind of interesting to know, like, what is it the females are looking at? Like, what does a female look at with a boy her age and go, what am I looking for here? And she looks and she sees armpit hair. And I guess that to her is a sign that he's getting older and something. It's not an attractive thing. Armpit hair is not a thing that when you get older that we're all like, let me see that armpit hair. Oh, but it's funny that at like 11, that's what she's looking at and noticing. Anyway, it's little things like that throughout the film, and the frankness and the willingness to describe exactly things as they are that are happening. Whether the kids are talking about, whether they're looking at a diagram of a penis, whether they're talking about their periods and putting on pads to give them a test run, whatever it is, it's the description always just describes everything as they are, and it doesn't ever shy away from that, and that's what this film is great at doing. So please watch. This is one of my favorite films of the year. Might be my favorite film of the year. Problem is I've seen 2 films I could say that about within a relatively short period of time, and I need more distance to figure out which one I truly love more, which one at the end of the day is really going to rise to the top, because man, I could flip a coin right now. But yes, I would totally watch this again. I would watch this many times. I was really surprised. So I'm going to give Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, an A. Please watch this. It's a fantastic film. It's worth the rental. If you have to rent it to get audio description, it's worth the price. I loved it. And I didn't think I would. I did not think this would be an A for me, but I'm pleasantly surprised that it is. And thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Please keep #describe it to me going. Try to get other content creators to watch a movie with audio description and talk about what that experience was like, and how, you know, how we use it and how we're affected by it, and what it's like to not have it available on the majority of everything. You know, I mean, really, it is the majority. And I have a website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm going to keep calling it that because I can't imagine they're going to stick with X. I think it's like when Netflix tried to rename itself, like Flickster or something like that. What did they change their names? I can't even remember. And that lasted for like a month, and then they were like, never mind, we're sorry. That was dumb. Please forgive us. Yeah, that's Instagram and Threads, all at Mac the Movie Guy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org, where you can find movies that have audio description and where to watch them. And the ADNA.org will let you know who's narrating your favorite films and television series. That's it. I will review something else and see you guys on the other side.